Hello and welcome to another in a series of technology focused tips brought to you by K2 Enterprises. My name is Tommy Stevens, and for the next few minutes, it will be my pleasure to lead you through a discussion of Excel's relatively new XLOOKUP function and show you how XLOOKUP is, at least in my opinion, superior to VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, and some of the other lookup tools that we've used in Excel over the years. Hope you're looking forward to this session. I certainly am. Let's jump right into it and begin talking about HLOOKUP. Now, it's important to understand as we get started that HLOOKUP is a relatively new tool. In fact, it is not yet available for all Excel users. I say this in the context of the timing of this recording, which is December of 2019. If you do not have XLOOKUP available on your PC yet, be just a little bit patient. It will be rolling out over the next year or so to Office 365 subscribers. Now, presently, it appears as if XLOOKUP will only roll out to Office 365 subscribers during 2020 and potentially then will show up in the next perpetual license of Excel, which presumptively we believe is going to occur around late 2021 or very early 2022 and would likely be known at that point as Excel 2022. So, long story short on this is if you're a 365 subscriber, you will likely gain access to Excel Lookup over the next 6 to 12 months, depending upon when your IT staff allows the updates to hit your computer. If you're not an Office 365 subscriber, you will probably not see XLOOKUP until the next release of Excel. Again, presumptively, that would be Excel 2022. Now, why all of the buzz about XLOOKUP? What are some of the advantages associated with XLOOKUP before we go into demonstration mode? Well, first off, XLOOKUP defaults to an exact match of your data, whereas VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, the tools that many of us probably use today, default to an approximate match of your data. It's always been somewhat counterintuitive for a number of Excel users that VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP defaulted to the approximate match. The good news now is XLOOKUP does indeed default to the exact match, but if necessary, you can cause XLOOKUP to create an approximate match for you. Another advantage potentially associated with XLOOKUP is that we do not have to specify a column index column as we otherwise do with VLOOKUP, nor do we specify a row index number as we do with HLOOKUP. Now keep in mind, XLOOKUP is versatile. It can look up either vertically or horizontally. As you recall with VLOOKUPs, if you're using a VLOOKUP formula, you have to tell it the offset column, usually a numerical designation to go look in column number 3 or column number 7 of your lookup range or something of that nature. That is not necessary with XLOOKUP. As you will see, it is much more intuitive. And then it's also important to understand that the arrangement of your columns, if you're using XLOOKUP as a replacement to VLOOKUP, or the arrangement of your rows, if you're using XLOOKUP as a replacement to HLOOKUP, the arrangement of the columns and the rows does not matter. XLOOKUP can look to the left and it can also look to the right. Now, as you're thinking about a VLOOKUP will only look to the right. And similarly, XLOOKUP can look above and it can look below. Whereas if we're talking about an HLOOKUP, an HLOOKUP can only look below. So here again, we're seeing some examples of how XLOOKUP is much more flexible than a corresponding VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP based formula. One other advantage, and I'm not going through all of them, but these are the biggest advantages that most people see, is that XLOOKUP allows you to specify what happens if your lookup value isn't found. Now, if you're doing that with VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP, you would typically nest the VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP based formula inside an if error function. With XLOOKUP, that is just native capability to the formula, as you'll see in a moment. So it makes for a much cleaner, a more concise, and easier to write formula than if we were using a combination of if error along with VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP. Enough bullet points. Let's jump directly into Excel and let's show you how you can start taking advantage of XLOOKUP. As you can see on the screen, I've got a relatively simple data set. There's no need for us to get lost in thousands of rows of data here. This simple data set will do a very good job of beginning to show you how useful XLOOKUP can be. And over in cell H3, I have a part number. And what I would like to do is to build an XLOOKUP based formula in cell H3 to identify the part number that's in cell H2. I might have mistakenly said the part number was in H2 a moment ago. I'm sorry, in H3 a moment ago. It's obviously in H2. So let's go ahead and start that. I'm going to begin with my XLOOKUP function, and I'm going to tell it that I want to go and find the value that's sitting in cell H2. Now here's where things start to get a little bit different. I'm also going to tell it what my lookup array is. That is, on what range of data do I want to look up? In this case, I only want to look up based on or I want the lookup range or array to be cells B3 through B15. Now that is different, obviously, than if this were a VLOOKUP. In a VLOOKUP, we would likely select this entire range of data, B3 through E15. But notice that we only select the specific data points that we want to look up on. And now I tell it where my return array is. Okay, so what values do I want it to return if it finds a match, in this case an exact match, if it finds a match out of column B? Well, in this example, we want to pull in unit price. So now I'm specifically telling it what I want it to pull in. As opposed to with a VLOOKUP, I would have indicated an offset column. In this case, that would have likely been column number 3, for instance. I avoid that confusion, and I'm very explicit as to what I tell it I want. And then lastly, in this formula, I'm going to include a statement of what I want it to do if it doesn't find the value that we're looking for. And so notice I'll just type in item not found enclosed in quotation marks, and then I'll go ahead and close out this formula. Now in this case, as you can see, it found part number C003. As you can see, that is on row 5 of the spreadsheet, and it did indeed bring back the correct corresponding unit price of $12.99. And obviously, if I go and change the part number now to L202, for example, it finds L202 just as it should, and it brings back the value, the unit price value of $8.49. But what if I type in an incorrect part number, C999, for instance? Now see that it brings back item not found instead of the traditional, let's call them what they are, ugly # in a error messages that we're accustomed to seeing. So here again, we're seeing this flexibility with HLOOKUP, the fact that I can embed what I want the error message to be. I can embed that directly into the formula without having to go in and nest the VLOOKUP or the HLOOKUP, as the case might have been, inside an if error statement. Now let's swap things around just a little bit. To give you a better idea of just how flexible this really can be. I'm going to change my part number up here back to a C001, something that we know is present in the data set. And now what I'm going to do is take this data out of column B. I'm going to cut that data, and I'm going to paste that data into column F. Now notice that when I do that, my formula, because obviously I was using relative cell references there, my formula actually updated the lookup range, the lookup array, I should say. It automatically changed those cell references to F3 through F15. Notice that my return array of D3 through D15 did not need to change because obviously the position of that data did not change. The important thing to see here is, and let me actually just insert a little column right there to make that a little bit cleaner and hopefully a little bit easier on your eyes. And we'll delete column B over to the left-hand side. Now, hopefully that's a little bit easier for you to understand. What I want you to understand and appreciate now is notice that even though we're looking up part C001, it's actually having to work back to the left to find the unit value. Try that with a VLOOKUP, right? Here we've got a very flexible environment in which we can have the XLOOKUP go find whatever values that we need, whether they are to the left or to the right, whether they're above or below. That is in the case we were using XLOOKUP as an alternative to HLOOKUP, or even if the formulas that we're looking for are on another worksheet or in an entirely different workbook. XLOOKUP can still handle this for us. Now, there's a lot more that we could say about XLOOKUP. The point of this very short video is to give you an introduction into XLOOKUP, prepare you for using it if you already have if you already have access to it or will be gaining access to it sometime hopefully in the very near future. And once you indeed do gain that access, be sure to start to take a look at some of the even more advanced features available inside XLOOKUP. I hope this has been helpful to you. We appreciate you stopping by and encourage you to check back on our YouTube channel periodically, where we try to get out updated Excel tips and similar information on a somewhat routine basis. Thank you so much. Again, we hope this has been helpful, and we'll look forward to serving you again soon.